All right, we're live.
We are live.
We need like a little pre thing like Kevin has with the little like your songs know what they wrestler to him. Spear, he gets gorge, gore.
He kind of just stole that one though. So
Oh, was that from somebody else? What is that one?
no, I think that's from like Raw, from like
Oh, is it?
the 2009 through 2016 intro.
I didn't know that. So
Every time I see
he
it,
did
I'm
well.
like, oh, it looks good though.
All right.
But yeah, but here we are. This is the real podcast to listen to.
What's
And
up?
I am the Macho Fan, Sandy Ravage.
I'm HeelHugz.
And we are
the keepers of the kayfabe.
That is right. Keepers of the kayfabe. Whether you believe it's real or fake, we will keep the kayfabe alive. That's right.
I feel like we should call our people the Kayfabians, but I feel like that's too long. I like it. I don't know.
And Kip Fabian might steal it from us.
Yeah.
Or Kip Fabian, Kip Sabian.
There you go. Hey, that could be like our mascot is Kip Fabian. It's like a Kip Sabian knockoff.
There we go.
Penelope, we might even be able to get Penelope Ford on the podcast then.
No, we get Penelope Dodge.
There we go. Penelope Chevy.
Whoa, we're not going that low.
Damn.
Situation.
Not a sponsor. Never will be a sponsor. Okay. So episode 1, Meet the Keepers. This is kind of our chance to figure this out. You know, we've always wanted to do a podcast. We talked about it for a while, and it's going to be fun. So kind of explain how we became wrestling fans or whatever we want to talk about, because this is our podcast.
Yeah.
We just do
exactly. And we're two diehard fans, and so it's something that fans can just be fans about.
That's right. We're going to fanboy.
So, Hugs. Exactly. We're fanboys, the macho fanboys, right?
That's right. I'm in the Macho Fan Club.
So Hugs, there we go. Hey, Macho Fan Club is still tugging along very, very slowly. But Hugs, what got you into wrestling?
It's kind of a hard question because there's a lot to it. So when I was a kid, I grew up in a wrestling household. I didn't necessarily grow up a fan. My dad was a fan of wrestling. Used to go to shows and stuff when he was a kid. So it's something that was just always on TV, or he would be watching it, talking about it, mention it. And I actually talked about this on TikTok in a video I did about my earliest memory of wrestling. I wasn't necessarily even a fan. I just remember seeing the Macho Man Randy Savage on TV and like going and watching it with my dad. And I thought he was like the coolest, most outlandish person with like these crazy multicolored tassels and stuff hanging off him, and it was just like a sight to behold. Yeah, but I didn't become a fan until much later. Like, what is your first memory of wrestling?
My first memory, I made a video about this too, because you brought this out to our TikTok world, and actually it brought out some really good memories. Because my very first memory was Kane versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 98, I want to say. I think WrestleMania 17.
When you say WrestleMania 98, it makes me think like, damn, we're in the future. Like we're so far in the future now.
Yeah, and Vince will still probably be in charge then.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think it was WrestleMania 17. And it was just the fact that I was at this party, and my dad's coworker, and that's what they were. They were huge, like your family kind of were like just watched wrestling ever since they were kids. And there was a couple kids my age there, and they were just so into this. And they explained to me the whole Undertaker storyline and the fact that he was fighting his brother, who he threw into a fire when he was a kid. And I was just like, no way! And I just was sold into that storyline, and seeing these two Goliaths just go at it. I didn't believe these people existed in the world. Yeah. And then growing into it, like it wasn't until maybe about a couple years later, the very first memory of watching Raw consistently, I remember, is the Eddie Guerrero and China storyline. Because one of my things is like, there's no way that big old woman was with that little guy. Like Eddie. That's just what I was like. There's no way I believe that, but I believed it. It was like, because you have to go with it, and it just sold to me.
That storyline was such a great storyline too, and also that reminds me of some of my earliest memories as a fan, because little known like trivia of me, I guess one of my first favorite wrestlers is someone you probably wouldn't think of, Dean Malenko. And Dean Malenko also had that like triangle with Eddie Guerrero and China and all that, like the lovers quarrel thing. But I just remember I got into WCW before I got into WWF at the time, and I remember watching Dean Malenko matches and thinking like he's a tiny dude. Like he's such a tiny
Yeah.
dude, but he could just twist people, and like that Texas Cloverleaf just looked like such a cool finisher. And like I think him and Six at the time had a feud going on, and they were talking about like his dad had trained them, and it was like this crazy thing about like honor and respect and all this. And like I was so into the NWO, and it just pulled me in. I remember being in elementary school and writing for the newspaper. It was my 5th grade year, and we had like a class newspaper. It was your assignment. You had to write like an article, and I think I wrote about like Uncensored 97 or something. Like I wrote about this WCW pay-per-view, and my best friend at the time wrote the WWF article because it was supposed to be one of us, but we fought over it, and they let us write about each company. And that's how I became a WWF fan, though, was through him. And he was like, you got to turn on Raw. You got to turn on Raw. And I think that was like the Losing My Smile promo by Shawn Michaels or something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, you came in at a good time for that one, too.
The
You were saying earlier, too, that you were able to go to matches as a kid. What was your first memory of going to a live event?
Big Show. Well, the Giant. So I had gotten my grandmother bought me tickets to a live event. And I remember going, and I'm from Chicago, so WCW ran the United Center, and WWF used to run Rosemont Horizon, which is now Allstate. And the United Center is just this crazy place. You got like the Michael Jordan statue out front. Like it was just a whole experience for me going there for the first time. And I get inside there, and I remember seeing the Giant, like the Big Show, if you don't know. But I remember seeing
Right.
yeah, and I remember seeing him, and it was like one of those things. And I think about it now when I see like Kali or like watching back and seeing Andre, it's so different seeing it on TV than being there and be like, wow, like this dude's like 100 feet tall. You know what I mean? Like it was such a cool
Yeah, like
experience.
you
That
actually weigh 500 pounds, and you can actually see that.
he
Funny
was,
thing about the Big Show. When I lived in Oklahoma, there was he played college at Southern Kansas State or like a Southern Kansas school, and that was like we're right near the Kansas border. And the college we played at has like a poster of
oh,
him
that's
like
awesome.
dunking on their own school. It's like
That's
he might have
awesome.
dunked on our campus, but he's the Big Show, so or Andre or not
Yeah,
Andre, the Giant for
the Giant.
WCW. Yeah, there's only really one Giant, and he is Andre. Let's be real.
Yeah. The only things I
We're keeping the
remember. We're keeping the kayfabe. That's right. Well, actually, the kayfabe would be that he's the son of Andre. If you remember way
oh
back, they used to like try to pitch that the Giant was the son of Andre the Giant.
man, could you imagine if like Vince tried to go through that though? Like they probably would have got over too,
That
like
was that
Jason
was
Jordan
old
did.
school. Yeah, Kurt Angle story. What did you? Well, we'll get into that at a later time, but I do want to know what you think of that.
Yeah,
But talking about that first show, honestly, that's like the only thing I remember is seeing the Giant there. That and there was a radio host, like a local Chicago radio host who was there, and I thought that was cool. But like thinking back, that's realistically my main memory from that show is seeing the Giant and just being in amazement. I was like 11, so it was like everything to me. I was like 10 or 11. What was
I
your?
remember
I was just
my
gonna say,
very
what was
first
your
show.
first event?
It was an indie event in Oklahoma. We saw I saw the Red Rooster, which I didn't know like anything. Apparently, he was like a big in the indie scenes for a long time, and I just hear about him more recently than I did as a kid. But the one thing I remember is the crowd was booing him, and it was my first wrestling event. Like I just literally was watching wrestling on a weekly basis, and so I kind of got the fact, and I was like maybe the same 10 or 12, in that age gap. And I just remember everyone was booing him, and so and he's going around trying to shake everyone's hand. No one's shaking his hand, and we're sitting kind of front row because at an indie show everyone sits front row. And so I stuck my hand out. He came over to give me a high five, and I just go, whew,
Oh
and
my
the whole
god!
crowd cheered me and they just booed him. And then like he kept coming around and like just playing to that character. And I just remember like just being so interactive. And that's one of the reasons I just fell in love with wrestling so much. It's just because of the crowd interactions.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been like a theater kid growing up. And so being a wrestler is being a live theater every night. Like you're performing. It's not, yes, it's in front of the millions and millions on camera.
Millions.
It is not. It's meant for the people in the audience, and there's only 8 to 12,000 people, unless you're in Stone Cold heyday, where
Yeah.
20 to 70,000. But it's just they add a different element, and when I was there experiencing that, like you feel good, like you're just part of a crowd, and you get to cheer, and it's like you're part of the show.
That's definitely a huge part of it. And I mean, you don't honestly, it's a hit or miss because sometimes you don't realize it because the audiences are either gone or dwindling now, like due to, the state of the world, as
The
people say.
circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like having those minimal wrestlers there, like the PC performance and stuff like that, it did really change how Raw feels, how SmackDown feels. And I liked how AEW does their crowd, honestly, even better than WWE, just because of the way that they interact is different. But I feel like the PC audience is getting better, like the PC performers have gotten more into it, because at first it felt very scripted. It felt like this is when we cheer, this is when we boot. Like it was very like generic. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But it has definitely gotten better over time. Random.
Yeah, well,
Just talk
especially
about
with
crowd
AEW, because
interaction.
they've been yeah, right, yeah. Well, the crowd, it's the interaction that drives the storylines. Like we see in AEW, like they've used the crowd interactions to make matches later on. Like
Yeah.
we see Jericho versus Pineapple Pete, and like all
Yeah.
these stuff that happen just because of crowd interactions, and so they're keeping that alive. And so that's it makes it enjoyable. I do believe AEW is winning in that regards. They might not be pulling the numbers anymore.
I'm trying to think. It's in the demo that matters. I'm not even gonna get into that argument, but whatever. I'm trying to think of the greatest crowd reaction I've ever heard live. Like, have you been to a lot of shows live, or like?
I have not, because, well, the few times that they actually come around to like Southern California is during the big shows, and so generally they sell out pretty quickly. And so I
Okay.
haven't been able. They were supposed to come in May or June of this upcoming year, and I was getting tickets, and then they shut it down because of the COVID stuff. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, like the one live show I was going to go to in probably been years now, because the only other live show I've been to was the only reason it was Kurt Angle. I believe Jeff Hardy had the Intercontinental title at the time, because the only reason I kind of remember that, I was about 14 or 15. I remember having a sign, and the week before was the match where I believe it was The Rock or Cena pulled down Kurt Angle's pants, and he was wearing a thong and a small boy pack and a small boy. And so like
Yeah.
they pulled his pants, and I had a sign that said "Kurt, nice thong," and that I was like a 14-year-old boy just holding up a sign, just hoping it would get seen. And
That's
my brother
awesome.
was a Jeff Hardy fan, so he had like a Jeff Hardy with the Intercontinental Champion or the Hardcore Championship. It was one of those championships he was holding at the time.
That's awesome.
But I didn't really go to much of the live shows, and so I missed that though, because I always listened to the crowd, and I'm always the ones like, what are they chanting here? And especially now with Twitter, I'll sometimes, like, especially when they go overseas, I have to be on Twitter and be like, okay, what are they chanting? Like, what is this song they're singing? Like, I don't know what these words are.
For sure. I mean, I've been pretty lucky. I've
But
been to a few events, but not like a lot of events. But the events that I've been to were like very overwhelming almost with the audience, because like being from a Chicago audience, like Chicago is one of those hot crowd towns, like that's just how it
yes,
is. And I remember I went to my very first pay-per-view I went to for WWE was WrestleMania 22 in Chicago, John Cena
nice.
versus Triple H, dude. And you would have thought there, like if you remember the RVD Cena match, like everybody's like, if Cena wins we riot,
Yes.
there was gonna be a riot, dude. Like the building was rumbling. I've never felt that in my life before. The entire building just felt like it was shaking to the foundation.
That is amazing. Those are the moments that you live for. One of my favorite crowd reactions I've ever seen on TV live was the Monday after when Roman beat Undertaker, and we all thought Undertaker retired. And then
Yeah.
Roman came out to the ring, and he just stood there, and the whole
Yeah.
crowd was just "F you, Roman." And then Roman's like, they just booed him for like 7 minutes straight. And
Yeah.
he's just like, "It's my yard now," and then dropped the mic. Like, oh, like those are the moments.
He handled that so well too. He really did. Like he just let the
He
moment like
milked it.
sink in. Yeah. That was super
They were
good.
like a fully well done cow, and he got every ounce of milk out of that. Man, I was sitting there. I literally got called down the hall. I was like, you turn it to the channel. Like, you don't believe what's happening right now. They're cursing on live TV. the crowd is. It reminds me of those moments when Austin would take over, or when CM Punk would kind of shut the show down. Like,
Yeah.
it just was pandemonium, and it just. You can eat it with a
You could
spoon. It
taste
was
it.
so good.
It's
Yeah,
palpable. What
exactly.
So what made you want to get into making wrestling content?
That's a good question. I honestly don't even remember anymore. That's a really good question. I know we kind of talked about this the other day, and I'm trying to think back. It's like I was on TikTok and just looking at videos, and I started seeing that there was a wrestling community out there. I remember seeing like Chelsea Wyand. I remember seeing her content, kind of one of the first ones, because she had all the belts, and she would like show, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I started following more and more people and getting in their community and seeing that other people watched. Because honestly, like in my community, I know one other person who I used to work with that kind of watched, and that was my vice. I can talk wrestling with, and even then he was like my manager at work, and so like we couldn't talk all the time because he was doing managerial duties. Now that I've been not working as much, it's just like I don't have no one to talk to, so it's just like I'm gonna start making the video. And it was the cosplay videos that I was like, you know what, I've seen all these people doing, I'm being this person and I'm gonna be this, and like the character Lou Nonsense was one of the main ones that was doing the character standoffs, and I was like, I'm gonna start doing that. And then honestly, like it was like overnight, it just started hitting. People started viewing. I was like, oh wow, like
I can do
talk
this.
and look about this. I got friends like overnight. It was like there's like 300 friends I have now, and now it's grown just so to a point where it feels like it's natural. It feels like it's literally like something I should be doing.
Well, and you are a pillar of the community. I mean, congrats on all your success. It's obviously, something that's worked really well for you, because when you mention anybody, when you talk to anybody in the community, you mention like who are your favorite creators, you're normally at the very top of the list of anybody I've asked. Personally, one of my favorite creators, one of the inspirations for why I create content on TikTok. So thank you for that. Without you creating content, we wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, well, thank you, because it still blows my mind that it's grown to this, because I feel like just a normal person, and that's the greatness about it. Like we're all just great fans, and the best part about the WWE universe and AEW universe now is we can all get along, and it makes this fun, and it makes this something that we want to talk about. It's cool again. Wrestling is cool again.
No matter how much people say it's not. I made a video about this, and I don't want to have to get into the whole Austin Theory thing, but it was Austin Theory, Murphy, and Rollins, like right when they were getting together and doing their whole thing. And I was like, man, this is going to be one of those moments where people are talking about when wrestling started getting great again, because the storylines are getting better. As much as the booking is still never as good as you want it to be, it's always going to be different than what you expect. You know what I'm saying? Or what you wish it was. But I just look at groups like that and I'm like, man, is this the next evolution? Is this the next group that we're going to look at? And is Buddy Murphy going to be the next, version of Randy Orton? Because he has all the possibility in the world. I thought Austin Theory would also be a huge star, but I don't even know if he exists anymore, if he's getting Thanos out of the company or not.
He's now just a theory.
Exactly. That's good. But it's like I see some of these stars and I'm like, who is the next John Cena? Because for a long time people were like, who's the next Austin? Who's the next Rock? Before that, who's gonna be the next Hogan? And I'm sitting here and I'm like, Cena kind of snuck up on us. Like Cena just became the biggest star, and then like, oh man, like one day you just wake up and you're like, wow, yeah, like holy crap, he's the biggest star in the world right now. It's who's gonna be that
Cena
next
had
guy?
the charisma. See, that's I don't know if we know that person in there yet. Everyone says, why can't I think of his name? Street Profits.
Montez?
Not Montez Ford. People say, because, and I see it too, if Montez Ford has a singles run, he has that charisma that will get the crowd over.
I love
Sadly
him.
to say it, the person that's the kind of the most right now, I'd say kind of is Otis and like maybe Braun.
Did you say sad to say?
No, not sad to say, but it's just like sad to say is like, because you say like John Cena is like, it's Otis, because Otis is like a jokeful character right now.
Cena was a jokeful character.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, the Doctor of Thugonomics.
Yeah.
Like Otis has the chance to be Cena and Daniel Bryan combined.
Exactly. I'm a huge Otis fan. It's gonna be like we have a friend Kevin that runs his podcast as well, and like he always hates Orange Cassidy. Like I love Orange Cassidy, I love Otis, I love all these comedy characters. Like that's my
Yeah.
lane, dude. Thugonomics John Cena, absolutely my lane, dude. Like I'm all about
Let's
that.
go.
Yep.
I got the Word Life chain right here.
I got
You
my
guys want
spinner
that there?
belt.
There you go. Word Life.
That's right. And it's actually at my John Cena Word Life dude right there. You can't really see him, but at my
Oh, your little pop.
my Thugonomics Funko Pop.
There you go.
But I look at it and I'm like, Cena, when he came out with ruthless aggression and like hit Kurt, nobody thought he was going to become what he is. Nobody thought Rocky Maivia was going to be The Rock. You know what I mean?
The Rock.
Yeah.
The highest paid actor in the history right now. Like,
That's
man,
crazy.
you can't put that guy's name on a billboard without it going globally billions.
Exactly.
It's insane. And the fact that they grew to this level. And so, yeah, sorry, the door was opening right there. Had to fix it. Yeah, it's
I say same thing with Stunning
that.
Steve, dude. Stunning Steve Austin turning into the Rattlesnake.
Or Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
No.
I read an article today. Vince McMahon Triple H is the one that's next in line to take it over. And so,
that's like
you
confirmed?
think Hunter Hearst? It's loosely confirmed. You can't trust all these sources nowadays, but it is something that it's been talked about. And Shane and Stephanie are kind of okay with it, from what it seems like. I know it's well deserved. I think Stephanie will always be involved. I think Shane's happy being where he's at in just a producer role, hanging out backstage and not having to do anything. Like it works well for the audience. It works well for his paycheck still. So let's just keep it things where they're going. I'm loving what NXT is doing, and so it's just like, hey, I'm okay with that. But anyways, let's get back to it. I want to hear what got you posting wrestling content, because you came from a YouTube background of something completely different, and then all of a sudden, HeelHugz pops up, and boom, he takes over the community.
I mean, it's been a crazy ride. Like, I have been a fan for pretty much my whole life. I always want to make wrestling content, and now I'm about to dip into the nerdy end of the pool. Since the late 90s, have done fantasy booking games. There's a series called Extreme Warfare, now Total Extreme Warfare, made by this dude Adam Ryland in the UK. But it used to be like this really horrible, like blocky, just text-based simulator, okay? And that has now evolved into like better and better games. They actually just came out with one a couple months ago during quarantine. It came out, so that was huge. But I've been playing this game forever. I used to write diaries. I'm just waiting for the comments and like the trash talk. I used to write these diaries of like different eras of wrestling. I did one that was like 1994 WWF, just randomly. I didn't even watch the WWF in 94. I watched it like after the fact through pay-per-views and stuff. But I'd done these my whole life, and my dad was always like, you should make videos about this, or you should, do something with this. Cause my dad, I'll tell you what, was like, he would sit there and listen to these storylines for hours, and he would tell me his favorite wrestlers and who I should push. One of his favorite wrestlers that he always told me to push, Cody Rhodes. He's a huge Cody Rhodes fan.
There you go.
Once I got into making, exactly. And once I got into making YouTube videos, I do a lot of reactions and stuff like that. Me and my wife actually tried doing live reactions to Raw and SmackDown, but she's not a wrestling fan at all. So that lasted.
I think that would sell though, because
it was
most
fun.
People that watch aren't real, I would imagine. I was trying to do this kind of the same thing.
Well, it's like,
just like I love going back and watching those videos. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
No, you're good. Well, it's like, it wasn't like it didn't work because she wasn't a fan. Like, people were fine with it. She just didn't want to sit there and watch, 7 hours of wrestling.
See, and that should tell you something, Vince McMahon. If you can't bring in new fans, you got to switch something. Okay, no karaoke contest though. I don't think that's the answer either. But
dude, I liked the karaoke contest. See, that's the thing. Like, I am the most.
They should have kicked off the show with it.
Yeah, I do agree. The placement was poor.
Or end of hour one. Hour one. I would take it that even.
Placement
Not
was
at the
poor.
End of the show.
Yeah.
It's just like, really? That you're expecting people to turn off at that point.
I'm such a wrestling purist, and also love the cheesiest, most terrible stuff that probably should never be on TV. Like, I love it, but I love it all. That's the problem.
my biggest gripe with it, because I literally went and rewatched it today. I did not watch it live because I was listening about it. I was like, I'm not watching. I'm not watching. I'm not watching. I end up watching because I'm cursed. And so I went in and watched it, and I don't understand why they have to be in the ring all the time if they know there's no crowd or that it's their own crowd. I would have loved to see that number, that whole karaoke from the Titantron. Give them like an entryway, make it like a show, like drop the mic or something. Like give them like the space. Don't put it in the ring where like it seems like it's supposed to be a match. Make it more of a performance. And they kind of, I don't know. I feel like they just stuck in their ways, and they don't need microphones anymore. I mean, yes, they kind of do for certain aspects, but they don't need to hold microphones. They can put mics on them. Like they have all this equipment. Yeah. I mean, they have all this equipment. They can do all this, but they're stuck in these ways, and it's making but I love when it's done right, because it has been done right in certain aspects.
I actually love the concept though that you're talking about, because they could make a lot more use of not even cinematic. People always say cinematic. I look at it as just non-traditional. They could do things differently because they have the freedom to do so with no audiences, and like they're not stuck or tethered to the ring or stuff like that. They could do more non-traditional things. And if they would have done the karaoke thing in a more cinematic way, where they just pre-taped all of it and had more fun with it, that could have been cool. Maybe shoot it from a bar. Bars need money right now. Pay them and just let them use it as a film area instead of a bar,
Instead of putting Jeff Hardy in one, put the karaoke people in one.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly. I guess the Usos can't really go, but,
Gonna get in trouble. Hey, Naomi too, right? Didn't she get in trouble from that too?
She's the one, it was the brother that got in trouble.
No.
And then she was just driving at one of the times. But yeah, it was it's hard to make it. But then like the inconsistency, what I was going to say, is because the fact that you have the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders on Raw do that better for better contest, which it grew on me like after a few weeks. It's like, okay, now I see what they're doing. And then you go and have a karaoke contest that tries to be more traditional. Like, just be consistent. Like you can do it with some stuff, but you can't do it with the other stuff. Like,
I feel that.
I mean, even in the 90s with the hardcore title, like there was moments where it was pre-filmed stuff, but they made it work.
Well, like I look at it, I do this a lot because of like marketing and stuff like that. I'm a huge fan of marketing. That may sound like a weird thing, but like I love watching commercials just to see the psychology behind like how people make
wrestling fans also a huge fan of marketing.
But like I look at segments like the I Can Do Anything Better, and I'm like, as a kid, what is my perspective of this? Is this what is going to make the next generation of fans? Because that's the type of stuff kids are into. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, if I was a kid watching this would be the best part of Raw for me.
The karaoke contest?
No, the Better Than You. The Viking Raiders and the
yeah, I can see that, because I was saying like the karaoke contest, like I love a good karaoke session. I love bad karaoke sessions. But it's meant to be at a bar, like, where you can have a couple drinks and sit and like, okay, this was fun. I'm going to go home now. And it's just like, it's not meant to be like an overdoing it, or something that I expect to see wrestlers do. Like, if you're going to make them sing, at least get the good ones to sing, and a couple,
Naomi's a singer. Doesn't she have an album out or something?
I guess. I mean, where was I guess Elias is injured. I forgot. Yeah, I was like,
there you go.
You get the people that are like known for it. Bring back Enzo.
Bring back Jillian Hall. So I messed myself up with the Jillian Hall reference. I can't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, the Dusty. What did you think of the Dusty tribute? How in the karaoke part?
I mean, I don't know whether it's supposed to be a shot or not. Like, 'cause at Cody with everything, like it happened during the weeks of the Great American Bash when Cody had already came out on the first night wearing the Cody Rhodes and the Dusty and the Great American Bash font, and then in Great American Bash night 2, we saw the Bionic Elbow by Bronson Reed, and they actually made a reference like, oh, that's Hall of Famer, WWE Hall of Famer Dusty Rhodes, like a tribute. And then I feel like they're just pushing the narrative that, hey, Dusty Rhodes is ours. Dusty Rhodes is ours. Cody is just Cody. He's not Cody Rhodes. And that's just kind of what they want. Like, it's Vince being petty. It's pettiness, but Dusty's great, and they have his rights, and they can flaunt that. So I mean, it just sucks to do it, but it's, they're gonna market.
Any time that Dusty is referenced on TV is good. Personally, I feel like his legacy is one that needs to be remembered, that needs to be respected. I feel like anyone that had a connection to NXT, it's way more genuine to have them do a tribute to him because he meant so much to so many. So I thought it was cool personally. I marked for it. I didn't even think of it as a shot against Cody until after the fact, but I'm also not like a cynic. I didn't like, oh, I am an AEW fanboy, but I'm not that type of AEW fanboy where I think everything is an attack against AEW. But I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's never, like I said, I don't want to make it seem like it's ever done poorly, but it's the timing, and they're gonna. It's just like when NXT was able to air 2 weeks before AEW on Wednesday night. It's not because they had to; it's because they could, and that's just what Vince does. It's not because he has to, but it's because he can.
But it makes it better. Like I want Vince to be
at least
bitter.
It's Dusty.
Yeah. Well, it's like I'm just like I want Vince to be bitter because I want NXT to be awesome. When Vince was like bitter and they got NXT on TV early, those shows were great. They had some awesome programming. Kevin, our friend Kevin, talked about this about how they front loaded NXT a lot. How they brought in like all these amazing matches and all this stuff to kind of power them up. And I was like, I'm all for that. I would totally buy into that.
I don't care if some of it had to be rushed and bring people in for these quick matchups. It made it good because then you got storylines that were quick and fast, and they were getting used to that kind of schedule. And they didn't have to do the house shows. So I feel like their matches were a lot more fresh. The problem I'm seeing right now with a lot of the not anymore, but when the main shows were doing the house shows too, is it gets in that moment where it doesn't feel fresh all the time.
I get that. I feel that.
And so, but like NXT though, like I don't know. I've always loved the way NXT does it, and they've just been killing it. They always have been. I'm surprised. Are you surprised the numbers are so low on Wednesday nights, or were you expecting something like this?
Not
that they're saying they're low. I mean, it's about between 700,000 and 900,000 in every given week.
With Corona, all the numbers are down, so it's kind of hard in general to, especially like AEW was just really getting into its stride, and then this happens and all the numbers are going down. So it's kind of difficult to say with how wrestling is right now. Like companies are closing because they can't, deal with it. People are turning off Raw and SmackDown in record numbers, let alone the smaller or lesser known shows, So it's hard for me to say like how I feel about that because of the circumstances.
Okay.
Personally. I'm also not a demo guy. I'm not like, I get where Jericho is trying to talk about, well, we're winning in the 18-49 demo. It's like, people don't care. Like, yeah, if you're like an insider, you might specifically drill down. But for the most part, the casual fan's going to say this person's winning, this person's losing. And that's just what you have to go for. You have to shoot for that number.
And like we tell people on TikTok all the time, it doesn't matter who's winning or losing as long as we're enjoying it. It's all that matters.
It's entertainment.
Because the war days were the best days of wrestling, especially in the days of the main fight and the post days. We had, especially after WCW and WWF got out of it, there was like 12 years of great wrestling. And then even then, it has its moments. So it's amazing. And now going into more wrestling moments. I know I made a video recently of my Mount Rushmore of WWE figureheads. Have you been able to get your Mount Rushmore put together, HeelHugz?
I did not make my video yet because I was very busy making these horribly quickly put together one graphic that I made.
It looks great though. I don't have anything different.
I have it in mind, like who my Mount Rushmore is. I just haven't put the video out, but it will be on my YouTube channel soon. Make sure you're subscribing to myself and the MachoFan over on YouTube. Our links will all be in the description. I mean, that's kind of how everybody does it.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I make sure like if you guys do want to check out mine is already out there, but I will go over it too. But HeelHugz, like who would be the first figurehead on your Mount Rushmore? If you for just WWE figureheads, what would your number one figurehead, or at least the first face of the figurehead?
So this is what we had talked about. Yours was a little bit different than mine. I would say the first person who has to be mentioned would be Vince McMahon. But for me, I believe McMahon built the Mount Rushmore of the people that will be mentioned in the future. But he would be the first person I have to mention.
Okay, yeah, because that's mine too. Because like we were saying, I based my Mount Rushmore off the actual Mount Rushmore's history, and the Mount Rushmore actual history was built on uh, the belief of growth, origins, preservation, and development. And so, based on the origins of the WWE, I had to give it to Vince McMahon. Like we can't deny, like if for you or for especially for either building the WWE or being on the figurehead, Vince McMahon cannot be forgotten. It is his brainchild. He
For
has
sure.
to be referenced in this motion right here. And who else would you put on their Mount Rushmore?
So it's been really tough for me trying to think of not just like the biggest names in the company and like who I think is actually like made the most impact on the company. So I think you can't have a Mount Rushmore with the WWE without the Undertaker.
Without the Undertaker, yeah. I mean, one of the main guys that his main career was with the WWE. That's an interesting choice, but it's not an off-putting one for sure. He, especially since his career just ended, and after that, such a great ride that he's had. That's a great pick. I was not expecting that one.
I feel like he's a
I
pillar of the community and a locker room leader.
Yeah, that especially the locker room leader. I've heard only numerous times where people either looked up to the Undertaker, and now in his new interviews where Undertaker's come out being like, people came and talked to me, and I was able to either tell them, yeah, that's a good idea, or no, and then it made him that figurehead where people
Mhm.
thought he was part of the authority without having to be that.
For sure.
Uh, and so I'm gonna put for my second one. I had to go with Hulk Hogan, just because you wouldn't have wrestling where we were today without Hulk Hogan. Even though in his later years, he has all this controversy. You can't deny when he was in. It was the biggest thing. It was a global icon before global icons. He was the first one who was in movies on a regular basis. The first wrestler to leave the WWF to go to Hollywood. And then when he went to WCW, it changed the numbers to the point where
Yeah.
it was like if like Tom Brady we're seeing it now. Tom Brady leaves to go to the Bucks. It's like now it's the crowd base goes with him type of thing.
Yeah. For
And so
sure.
like I hate putting him up there though. I just hate, but with that's when I remember watching wrestling when I was a kid. My grandma, when she found out I started getting back into it, she was like, "That's the one she remembered was Hulk Hogan."
Yeah.
And so I found out like I bonded with my grandma more because she used to watch Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper and like would just watch them some nights and just on TV because there was nothing else on. And so like I learned new things about like my family with that. And so I just knew how big Hulk Hogan was, and I can't not give him credit for that.
I feel
He
like
is
there's a
what you
large
think of
part of the
wrestling.
I feel sorry to cut you off. I feel like there's a large part of the country that like they were either like a Hogan fan or a Flair fan. Like some people think Flair was the height of popularity, and other people think Hogan was the height of popularity. Like it's kind of weird because I'll see some people that'll swear that Ric Flair was more popular than Hulk Hogan ever was. I don't see that, but I've
Yeah,
heard that argument made.
yeah. I mean, I've seen it too. I see. I think I might be on the other half of the Hogan half
I'm on the
because I
Hogan
don't see a
half.
lot of those Rick. Yeah, I don't see a lot of those Ric Flair people. I mean, don't
Yeah,
get me wrong. Ric Flair was great, but I wouldn't put him on a WWE Mount Rushmore. I feel like he's
for sure.
done great for wrestling as whole, but I wouldn't put Ric Flair on my Mount Rushmore for WWE.
So my
Who else
Mount
would you put on yours?
Rushmore. So looking at the way that you did yours, okay, Hogan was your popularity pick essentially, right? Like you have to have him
The
on there from
growth
a
of the business. Yeah.
exactly. So I kind of broke this down my own type of way. Vince McMahon is the man who built it. Undertaker is the backbone of the business, and he's like a constant, right? So my next
Mhm.
pick was the popularity pick, and for that, Stone Cold Steve Austin. As much
There
as
you
you can
go.
say about Hulk Hogan, in his era, you can say the same for Stone Cold Steve Austin, who brought the largest ratings in the history of professional wrestling to the business. You know what I mean? So I kind of
100%.
I didn't want to do the whole like these are the most popular people type of thing. I wanted to kind of have my own criteria. So Austin's my popularity pick.
popular. I would not disagree with that. I have a little spoiler about that later, but my next one is I'm going off of is the developmental side. And so I try to pick who was the most, and I was torn between this pick because there's two people I had in mind for this, and it was just who did I feel took wrestling and made it something completely different. And I went with Bret the Hitman Hart, mainly because of what he was able to do with technical wrestling. The fact that he was able to make submissions a major staple in the community. The fact that he could trigger, like he could go after your legs, and it mattered in the end of the match. He was never really the biggest guy, but he knew the pressure point. He could make you finagle your body and make it actually look like it was painful. And when it just took what wrestling was and made it something completely different and something like more of like an MMA style where you had to defend against. It wasn't just standing suplexes and throwing against the ropes and backhands and forearms. And so I had to go with Bret the Hitman Hart there. But I felt so bad leaving out Dusty Rhodes because what Dusty Rhodes was able to provide for everything in the wrestling world.
See, like when we had spoken about this, Dusty would be on my wrestling Hall of Fame or my wrestling Mount Rushmore, but not my WWE Mount Rushmore. But
Yeah.
I do have a similar criteria for my next spot, which is like a developmental type thing. It's best for business. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Triple H. Because I feel like he is a great performer who has evolved throughout the history of the sport, especially in the WWE. He's been a part of some of the largest stables that have brought, countless fans to the sport and countless moments. His work backstage just in WWE has been great, and also his work with NXT is building the future of the company. So I think Triple H is that development spot for me.
That is a great pick. Triple H, one of those faces that was able to make himself a part of the WWE history. Like he was one of those go-getters from being, we were talking about earlier, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and then going on to kidnapping Stephanie and marrying her on a whim just to get spite from Vince McMahon and Test. Like it's just like he was able to put himself in WWE history, and that's a really great pick there. I'm sad I didn't pick him because my last one, I couldn't go with just one last person. I had to pick two because I feel like these two people went hand in hand. Without the two people is The Rock and Stone Cold. And granted, like you were saying with Stone Cold, it was at the height of popularity when Stone Cold was champion. But one of the things that I had to put The Rock in there too is The Rock was able to be in that time and survive and then come out even more on top. Because if you look at even The Rock right now, he's the highest paid actor in the history of acting at this point. And he can come back at WWE anytime and be most over wrestler. Like he's still in shape. He still got it. Like he could do it all. And so I had to put for like The Rock and Stone Cold because they preserved the wrestling history. Like that Attitude Era is what is engraved in most wrestling fans' minds.
I would have to completely agree with that, and it's hard to pick because it's more of a time than a person. You know what I mean? Like you're putting those two people, but it's just that element of time on your Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
I like that.
Man, one of our future episodes, we're going to have to go back and watch some of those episodes because that's the time. I miss those times.
So are you ready for my last? Because Vince McMahon's not on my Mount Rushmore. He's the builder.
I know you got one more.
Are you prepared for probably the most out of left field person? You will never guess this if I give you 100 guesses. It was actually the T-shirt that I wore earlier today. I was wearing it before the podcast and made videos in it.
Let's see. No,
Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant. Oh my goodness. All right, I can't wait to hear why. Why
Andre the Giant
and the Mount Rushmore?
Because not only is he arguably one of the most instantly memorable, like recognizable characters in the history of the WWE. If you bring up Hulk Hogan's name, synonymous with that, Hulk Hogan's greatest moment of his career would mean nothing if it weren't for Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant represents what I told you was my favorite thing about professional wrestling, the thing that I remember from my first show I ever went to. He epitomizes spectacle. He was the
Yes.
larger than life character that created the love affair for all other larger than life characters. If it weren't for Andre, I wouldn't care about the Giant as much. I wouldn't care about Kali and all these other guys. Andre was that guy that I always envisioned, where you had that interview with McMahon talking up to it. You know what I mean? Like, there's just all these iconic moments.
Grabbing Mean Gene's head like a
Exactly.
peanut.
And then you have
even the peanut line. Anybody
there you
want
go.
a peanut?
Yeah, there you go. You have the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. You have all these different things that Andre has touched the business, even after his unfortunate passing at, for me, a young age for him. And he lived his life in pain, and he lived his life in ridicule. You hear the stories that he was treated so poorly for being this monstrous character, but you got to think of how many people's hearts and minds he had touched. He deserves a spot on that Mount Rushmore for WWE.
That's beautiful. I couldn't even say it any better. That is amazing. That's your Mount Rushmore beats my Mount Rushmore. All right, blow it up. Where's the TNT?
Start over.
We're giving this land back.
But yeah, I hopefully I can shoot that video and get that up before this goes live. So make sure if you want to go watch that, you did it in the future before this, maybe. If not, go watch my full reasoning for all my stuff. Make sure to check out Sandy's video over on his channel, because I tell you what, the most energetic wrestling content creator by far. I am never bored watching your videos. I will say that.
Oh, well, thank you. That's the one thing I try not to do, is because I see so many videos out there where I'm just like, okay, get to the point. So I just try to hit it. I just try to hit the points.
Oh yeah, man.
So it's been fun, but this has been a lot of fun.
It's been a good time.
I think this wraps up our first episode right here.
Yeah.
But we would definitely be making more, it sounds like.
It's going to be a fun time. And make sure to comment. If you are from TikTok, if you found us from TikTok, let us know that in the comments. We definitely want to see where people are coming from. Let us know other stuff you'd like us to talk about. We aren't really a recap and review show. We're not really an interview wrestler show. We have friends that do that, and they do it way better than we ever could. We're just two wrestling fans trying to have fun, hanging out. Hopefully you're enjoying it. And we'll have more videos soon. I think we're going to try to do this 2 times a week.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like a plan to me. And we definitely will go over big moments. But other than that, like what Hugs was saying, we want to have fun with the fans. So just come hang out with us.
For sure. Keep it easy, Kayfabians. That's not our end tagline, but I'm just going to say it.
All right. But other than that, I am the Macho Fan, Sandy Ravage. You can find me anywhere on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's all the same moniker.
I'm HeelHugz. My name is different on everything, but TikTok, I'm HeelHugz, Insta, whatever. Hug Knuckles TV is my YouTube channel. Hugs and Sam is my YouTube channel. Follow all of it. All of our links, of course, as always, in the description. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you guys soon. Peace out.
Peace out, Kayfabians.
Kayfabe.